Man, it feels good to be back. It's the first live show in a while. Going to be rusty for sure, but we're glad to be back with you guys. Comment section, we've been missing it. We've been looking over and just dreaming the days where it was flooded with you guys dominate Tennessee fans or Ohio State fans, whoever it was. Just glad to have y'all back. The offseason is closing. I saw the tweet the other day that college football is less than 100 days away, and it got me going. Like that's not that far. That is just not that far. We got a packed show today. I would see some big news in the baseball program. We're going to talk all about that. It's close to home. And then we have some big things going on in terms of SEC scheduling. If you guys haven't been in the loop, we'll catch y'all up and discuss it. And then also, of course, as you know, we're already looking at futures, already looking at the numbers. We're here to break Vegas. We're going to talk about some Heisman odds, who we think you should play. With all that said, let's make it happen. Oh, boy. Is Griff frozen? I can't hear you.
All right, folks. Great intro there.
Oh, nice. I don't know how
we lost
how you did that. All right, yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
anyways,
Griff got kicked. Our producer got kicked, and when your producer gets kicked, you just run around in circles.
Mine was freezing up because I'm streaming the Braves
What
game.
Wow.
Yeah, I just
first
assumed
live show back.
Dude, it just kicked me off.
it's
Yeah.
the off season for everybody. Anyways,
First live show back. Griff's kicked off.
Dude, my whole Chrome just shut down.
We're in the market for a new producer. If y'all know anybody, please let us know. But yeah, boys, how we feeling? With a little update, what we got?
bar prep has not been fun. I'm officially a doctor though, so I expected.
You feel different?
It's Dr. Jake on this show now.
Dr. Jake.
I feel better than everybody.
Dude, your tweet the other day cracked me up when you were like, "I'm a doctor now and nobody can stop me."
It's just well known in the law profession that if you go by doctor, everybody just kind of thinks you're a jackass, which is totally fair. But I'm doing it for a Twitter bit, so I think that's a little bit different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm more than willing to refer to you as Doc. So I like it. Well, let's get right into it because we got a lot to talk about. After us, Brooks will be coming on at 9 for his live show. I think it's nothing but rants tonight. But so, as you guys know, everyone here knows, Coach Stricklin is out at Georgia. He has been terminated after 10 years. He's been at school for a long time. 10 years is a long time for anywhere to coach. So that kind of speaks to the success that he had throughout most of it. I'm not sure what's going to happen to the rest of the staff. You know, most of the time, everybody knows how this goes. New guy comes in, wants his own guys. So we haven't heard that for sure yet, just speculating. But that is what I would guess. But I'll just start out because obviously I played for these guys. They recruited me, and I have nothing but respect for all of them. I'm still in contact with all the coaches there. I go there in the off season, train there in the off season. Sometimes they're more than welcoming to all of us that have been there. Coach Strick, when I first got to school, I was supposed to be, one of the guys was come in, be the starting rotation and stuff. And I really struggled early on, especially in the fall and the kind of the start of the season. And in every interview, anything ever happened, they'd always ask about me. And Coach Strick would just quickly say, like, I'm not worried about Cole. He's fine. He's got what it takes. He's going to be good. And that confidence always helped me for sure. It's him having confidence in me knowing I wasn't really just playing for my job every time I went out there, that I could relax and just pitch. Helped me out a lot, and definitely helped me now in my career. So appreciate you, Coach Strick, and appreciate the rest of the coaches. I got nothing but good things to say about them.
Yeah, two things. Number one, we've touched on it before. You know, if you glued wheels to my ass, you could use me as a wheelbarrow. You know, if 2020 hadn't gotten canceled, we might be talking about a whole different story here. And I only met Coach Strick that one time. We met him at the charity golf tournament. Dude gave me a grip and a grin. Said, you know, nice to meet you. Said he was a big fan of the show. Great guy. I mean, he wasn't Mr. Big Shot in there too.
No.
He was always nice to me, you know, the time that I did meet him. And I mean, you hate it because, you know, it's a guy losing his job. You know, this is probably mostly all he's ever known is coaching Georgia baseball. It's been over a decade, hasn't it? I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, you know, a guy like that, as good of a guy as he is, he's gonna catch on somewhere if he wants to keep coaching. So
his son Kale is a senior in high school, and he's committed to Georgia. Really good player. He's a catcher, and I don't know if they're a package deal. I don't know if Kale's going to continue to come to Georgia, but I know he probably wants to play for his dad, like any kid would want to. That'd be sick. Yeah. So that's a heck of a package deal you're getting if you're another school and you get Kale along with him because that dude can really play. So I know Brooks posed a question on Twitter, like where does Georgia baseball job rank in the country? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're going to be more of an expert than either of us. I will say, in terms of the talent that's in the state, well, if you just go off talent in the state, it's probably top one.
Yeah.
But that's not how these things work. The MLB draft comes calling for a lot of these high school guys. Cole, you were a projected first-round pick out of high school, but you ended up going to college, and that's usually the exception and not the rule. But I think in terms of talent, facilities, culture, atmosphere, it's got to be somewhere in the top 10. The only thing that really knocks you is it's stiff competition, and it's not getting easier with Oklahoma and Texas coming into the fold. This is going to be a top to bottom elite baseball conference. You're going to be really hard pressed to find a truly bad team week in and week out. But I think it's at least a top 20, top 15 job. It's especially when these facility upgrades come in, it's going to be people are chomping at the bit for it.
Yeah, I think that's the huge part, honestly. I think before Josh Brooks, I think it's not as high as it is with Josh Brooks. And I think a lot of people know that, understand that. And I've been talking to a lot of people in the baseball community because, you know, a lot of people play college baseball, obviously in professional baseball. There's high schoolers mixed in, but I would say a lot played in college. And so, you know, even a lot of the coaches, everybody's asking me, like, I heard Strick's out. Like, have you heard any names? And here's what I'm hearing. So I've been talking to a lot of people about that and just, you know, where it would rank. With the facilities coming, like there's nothing stopping Georgia from being, like you said, a top 10 job and even higher. Like there's a higher ceiling on it than that because, like you said, the state of Georgia has as many baseball players as any state in the country. Like that is the main focus, number one, for Josh Brooks, in my opinion, is finding someone who knows how to recruit Georgia. If that means going off the wall and getting somebody that, you know, maybe has not had just a ton of success as a head coach necessarily, but somebody who's recruited Georgia their whole life and has good relationships with the high school coaches, I think that's worth a look because you just have to keep a barrier on the state, man. And Clemson's coming in, obviously. There's tons of schools coming to Tennessee. You can't let guys like Chase Delander get to Tennessee. You can't let stuff like that happen. So I think that is priority number one. And that's why it's such an enticing job to people who know the South, is because they know that they can do that. It can get back to where it was, 2008, 2009 years. And then in terms of facilities coming in, like you said, it's going to be state of the art. They've been behind for a long time, but that's the one thing holding Georgia back from being up there at the top of the SEC in terms of kind of the shiny new toy. Everybody else has one. We don't have one. That's the kind of the draw that we need to get people to really want to come play baseball there, not just want to come to the school. So I think those two big things lead to be, I'd say the ones that probably the top jobs in the country in college baseball would be Texas, Texas A&M, just because the money there and the facilities there are outrageous. LSU, those three schools I think are at the top. I don't know if there's any way you could dethrone them. And I think it's followed by the UCLAs, the Florida States, the Mississippi schools, Arkansas, like some of those schools who are all the way invested in baseball. Georgia's not there yet, but I definitely think that, winning cures everything. So you get in there, you create a buzz, and you get new facilities. I think it can be, one of the best jobs in the country for sure.
Yeah, and you talk about evaluating high school talent, and I'm not speaking to each of these guys' situations individually, but even guys like Kyle Lewis, Tyler Stevenson, guys like that ended up at Mercer, Kennesaw State. Got to keep guys like that, at the capstone.
Yes, no doubt about it. I think I lost my train of thought. Hold on. So some of the names I've been hearing, and I think if you look at Josh Brooks, and he's made the Mike White hire, that's really the only hire we have to evaluate, I guess. Has there been another big one, big splash? Basketball coach, girls basketball coach, after Joni Taylor left. So when we heard that Crean was obviously fired and he was going after some guys like Andy Enfield from USC and Mike White from Florida, we didn't hear much about Mike White, kind of just came on. It looks like he likes to go get guys that have established winning at the Division I level, which I like. And baseball is a little bit different because, like you said, Jake, earlier, you have to evaluate guys. The recruiting so different because guys can go to the draft. So you're recruiting these top guys not knowing, like, even if they commit, they might not come to your school because they might get picked in the draft and leave. So it's a very hard thing to balance, I think. And so having somebody who has dealt with those high-level recruits before is a big deal. Some of the names I've been hearing, I've heard Wes Johnson from LSU, their pitching coach. I think it'd be a great hire. He's done a heck of a job at LSU. He's obviously recruited extremely well. I think that'd be great. I've also heard the head coaches at ECU and Campbell. Both those schools are powerhouses, baseball powerhouses. Campbell has, if you're a Georgia baseball fan, Campbell came to the regional in 2018, and they were really good. That's when they were first starting becoming a baseball school. And now they've produced a lot of MLB talent. They've been a regional host. They've made super regionals, and they are a very, very good team. I think either of those schools would be a slam dunk hire, in my opinion. And the last one that I've heard, this is just kind of a rumor. I don't even know if he was there for the job, but Troy Tulowitzki was on campus at one point. I don't. Jake taking a deep breath. That's kind of he was on campus. This was before Strick was even fired. I don't know that he was even there interviewing for the baseball job, but it is Troy Tulowitzki, and you talk about a guy who could probably recruit really, really well high school talent. If he couldn't recruit high school talent, then those kids need to flip on some highlight videos because he was
he's coaching in Texas too, getting some good experience over there. But I tell you, man, Tulo was my favorite player as a kid for multiple reasons. I do believe he was the best player in the world at some point. Very, very high peak, but very short peak. But the dude was a 40-40 threat, did it all. When you talk about five-tool player, before Mike Trout, there was Troy Tulowitzki. I mean, he'd be a legend. It'd be cool to have him on campus for sure.
It would be cool. It would be cool. I would give that less than a 1% chance, but I don't even know that he's interested in coaching baseball. I think he left Texas. I don't think he's in college baseball right now.
I don't think he was even doing anything either. I think he was kind of like an assistant something.
Yeah, he was just around.
Sure what he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's even in it. So I would say he was just hanging out in Athens because he wouldn't want to do that. But he was there. That's what I did here. I would lean those other guys first. And like I said, maybe somebody who just knows the state of Georgia really, really well. Y'all got any other thoughts on that whole situation?
Nah, I think I'm just about good. But like I said, yeah, all the respect to Coach Strick. Hope he lands on his feet.
No doubt. And that's a program we'd all like to see boom because we know his potential and it could be really good. And 2020 was a disaster.
Having a sneaky sick college baseball team is like sneaky underrated. Like you think about it, like basketball, football, like it's cool to have those programs jumping, but you see how they have fun at like Mississippi State and stuff like that. It's elite.
It's just a different. Go ahead, Drew.
College baseball has like a pool that I think a lot of people don't realize. Like once you like get into it though, and like I know I'm going to be all into it watching all these regionals when they start coming on and everything. Like last year, I got the fever when the College World Series came on. Like I was locked in, and I don't know. I feel like everybody could get behind that if we.
It's the most unique postseason in college sports for sure. Just the way it's operated, and it's gained a lot of steam on social media the last few years with some big time talking heads really pouring into it, which is awesome. And I think it needs to be because it's a different style of game than you flip on MLB game and watch. Like it's just way different. We talk about it here all the time. And obviously, I've never played in MLB, But I know for a fact that, when the Braves throw their first pitch here, if they've already done it or they do it here in a minute, there's not as much riding on it as it feels like there is when you're on an SEC weekend. Like, it feels like every pitch is life or death. And you know what? For the coaching staff, it kind of is in terms of their job. But there's so much tension. There's so much, just feel like it's hanging on every single pitch that, you're filled with emotion. That's what college baseball is. It's filled with so much emotion. And, yeah, if we could get it booming, it's an experience like any other in terms of, how the fans can operate. Players can hear you on the field. In football, they can't hear you. Basketball, they can kind of hear you scatter, but it's still loud in there. Baseball, like you can make an impact on the game big time. So I'd love to get it booming.
Yeah, and I just feel like college baseball too, at any point it can be turned on its head. In a college baseball game, you could be up 7 runs and in one inning, that is gone.
Oh yeah.
Just MLB, it just doesn't feel like it has that. I don't know, it's just very different.
Yeah. So moving on from that, like we said earlier in the intro, SEC is meeting this week in Destin. It's the typical SEC meetings, yearly meetings, and a lot has been talked about the schedule of when Texas and Oklahoma joins. What's that going to look like? And I think for the last 2 or 3 years, everyone's just assumed, we'll do some pods. We'll go to a 9-game schedule. It's going to be good. We'll keep the traditional rivalries, and we will, flip back and forth between other teams. Well, in hindsight, that'd be great. And in a perfect world for fans, that's what we all want. But as we know, we don't really, it's not all about what we want as fans. It's all has to do with the dollar bill and where the money follows. And that is completely up to ESPN and the SEC as a conference. So just to catch y'all up, 8-game schedule is still in play. 8-game schedule, in my opinion, would be probably the worst case scenario because you would play each team a home and away every 4 years. So that could legitimately mean that Jacksonville would be done. Stuff like that would be done. We would play Florida at home, and we keep one traditional rivalry. So Jacksonville might actually stay. But after that, when we're talking Alabama and Tennessee, we're talking stuff like Alabama, LSU, we're talking Florida, Tennessee, those rivalries would happen twice every 4 years. So we might see Alabama and LSU play once and then not see them again for the next 3 years, which I think would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, my only pushback to that, I think in terms of the scope of the SEC, I don't think I would like it. But in terms of just Georgia's purely, I think I would, because you keep Florida as your one rival, obviously. You do lose Auburn, but you look at the pod format we have up on the screen. The suggested or predicted pod format would be our permanent quote unquote rivals. Would be Florida and Auburn, who we are actually rivals with, and then we just get stuck with South Carolina. So it's kind of
this is for a 9-game schedule though.
Yeah,
no,
I'm saying 8-game schedule.
For an 8-game schedule, you only get one permanent opponent. Is how the proposition is right now.
I know. I'm saying that's why I wouldn't hate 8 too much, specifically just for Georgia, but just for a 9-game schedule around, it's better for there's some weird things on this list that we can get into with each team, but yeah, I think specifically if you're Georgia, the 8 games not the worst, just because you keep Florida and I just don't want to be pigeonholed into playing South Carolina every year. That's pretty much the base of it.
I will say, as a college football fan, I don't like the 8-game one permanent opponent schedule because not seeing Alabama LSU every year would suck, and not seeing Alabama Tennessee every year. Well, I guess recently it hasn't mattered that much, but when it has the weight that it had this year, it would suck,
Yeah, that's part of the thing with these pods is I think the person that made them, it's sensible because I think they're trying to balance, so you just don't go through a murderer's row. Because if you think about Auburn, if you line up Auburn's opponents, it's going to be Alabama, Georgia, and LSU, and that's awful. But if you look at it from a sensible approach, Alabama, the first one, obviously their 3 permanent opponents under this format would be Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. And you got to keep Bama, LSU, man. That's one of the best games every year. I know that people aren't going to like that, or Bama fans, LSU fans, whoever aren't going to like that, but that's just part of what we got to keep is college football.
Yeah, Yeah, and so they want to get it decided. Greg Sankey says he wants to get everything decided. They're probably just going to vote on an 8 or 9 game schedule this week. Can you take this graphic down real quick, Griff?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in a minute. So Nick Saban was a huge proponent for 9 games. This was, 2 years ago, I guess. And reports are saying that he's kind of flaked away from that. And I'm not 100% sure why, but obviously that's a guy who has a lot of pull. He's earned that pull too. He's probably the best college football coach of all time. But I do know that it could be a major problem in terms of canceling contracts. So as we know, college football schedules are made 10 years in advance. So if we flip to a 9-game SEC schedule, we're going to have to take off a game against one of the bye games against, whoever we play. And that's going to cause some major problems because then we have to buy them out, add another game. Everyone in the SEC is going to have to do that. That's a lot of money. And then it's essentially who pays this. Is it the SEC? Is it ESPN? Like, who plays this? Who pays this? Sorry. That's a problem. As we said, money's the issue. And I do know that if you add another SEC game, I was reading in the TV contracts today, that the contract would probably have to be a little bit renegotiated with ESPN because that would add another SEC game that they would have. So they'd have to give more money to the SEC, which they don't want to do. Nobody wants to give more money. So I think it's going to be a big ordeal. For the whole time, I've been playing on 9 games. I've been playing on the permanent opponents and rotating every year, which I was a big fan of. And now I'm a little bit worried that we're going to have this 8-game schedule and it could just be kind of worthless.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think is an easy solution here, which it's not an easy solution for them, but I just think SEC and ESPN should put the bill for all these buyouts.
Yes.
That seems to be the rational solution. It's probably not what's going to happen, but yeah, I don't want Georgia's athletic department losing money over this. That's money we could be using on literally anything else. So, right. Yeah, I mean, if you want the 9th game, foot the bill. I mean, that's probably what they're going to go to the table with. But I don't hate the 9-game schedule and its idea, but its practice obviously is going to be a little bit complicated. So, yeah, I would say if you want the 9th game, pay all these buyouts. Simple as.
And this may be very surface level of what I'm about to say, but it seems like they would want to fit those bills for these teams, because then if these teams are pouring that money into their team rather than, shoveling out to these other schools, they just have to buy out so they don't have to play them. That's making your product better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. It's
just the upfront cost, and then the fact they'll have to pour more money into the deal they reached in terms of, and that it'd probably be a lot more. I think I read $3 to $5 million per game added. So that's a lot. That's a lot of money. A lot of way over our heads and stuff we don't have to worry about negotiating, but we do worry about the outcome because that directly affects the sport that we love so much.
Yeah.
If they vote 9-game, what would be the optimal scheduling for obviously the Dogs, but then as SC as a whole? Jake, you've already kind of talked about it. You're not a fan of South Carolina.
We can, like I said, we can go through each of them if y'all want, but South Carolina is just, it's not a rivalry. And I'm tired of people telling me it's a rivalry because it's not.
Pull it up real quick, Griff.
Florida and Auburn. Yeah, absolutely. But I would rather see Tennessee on here. The weirdest one on here to me is Florida. Florida and Oklahoma, hands down, have the weirdest one. So Florida has Oklahoma, Georgia, and South Carolina. Which Florida and Oklahoma, when was the last time they played the 2009 Sugar Bowl, whatever? Florida needs to be playing Tennessee and LSU. And I understand that's hard to make that work. And I think they were trying to balance difficulty here. But if you're going to do this, do it by the big games. That's what matters. Well, I understand Alabama doesn't want to play LSU, Auburn, and Tennessee, but
let me tell you what the major problem here is. The reason that Florida has those teams is because that school down there at the bottom of this graphic with the star and the V in the middle of it.
No, I was about to say.
That's ruining everything. These guys need to go. All right. I know Vanderbilt brings some stuff for baseball. I promise you ESPN is not worried about college baseball right now. This is football related. Vanderbilt needs to be relegated to the AAC or something. Heck, they wouldn't win the AAC. They would probably be in 8th place in the AAC. Vanderbilt is ruining this because they're taking up a Tennessee spot because they have to play them in the same state. Tennessee is now missing Florida, which can't happen. That simply can't happen. And it was before our time, before that rivalry was insane. But I appreciate the history of it. Like that can't be getting rid of.
It's like Georgia Auburn
to play Vanderbilt. Like put Vanderbilt on Ole Miss's permanent opponents. Like nobody cares about Missouri Ole Miss. Nobody cares about that. Ole Miss is like Ole Miss. Just keep the relevant rivalries relevant is all I ask.
Yeah, and the thing with like Vanderbilt too. Like you talked a lot about balancing it out, Jake, and like how you can tell they tried to balance it out as much as possible. But you can balance it out as much as you want. But there's going to be 3 teams that have Vanderbilt on their schedule every year. And true. Their schedule is always going to look easier because of that.
That is true. That's a fair point.
And, it's just like I said, I get trying to balance competition, but these things change.
They
change. They change.
Not every team is up every single year. So it's
I wouldn't have been able to guess Missouri's if you gave me 8 guesses. I wouldn't have.
They had to have been just an afterthought in this. They were like, all right, what are the last 3?
Who's the last 3? Kentucky, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma.
Whack to me.
What?
LSU's is kind of whack to me. Like Ole Miss, Arkansas, and A&M. Like no,
I get
Bama
the Arkansas one.
But no Bama? Like, I feel like that one you'd have to have in there.
Yeah. I don't know.
You got to have Bama LSU.
The problem is,
love Texas. I think they nailed Texas.
Yeah, I like Texas a lot. Texas, for those of you who are listening, is A&M, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. That's sick. The problem with Alabama is if you give them LSU, they have Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU, who, if things are right, all those teams are top half of the SEC. Which is a hard draw. That's for a fact that's the only reason they did it, because if Nick Saban looked down and saw Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU, he'd go, why are we getting punished for being the best? That's what that boils down to.
I do like the rotations though. Like if you look at the rotations, they do make a lot of sense. Like just looking at Georgia specifically. So their rotations, they would either get Alabama or Tennessee, Ole Miss or Arkansas, LSU or Oklahoma, Vandy or Mizzou, A&M or Texas, and then Kentucky or Mississippi State. Like that feels pretty balanced. And by the way, whoever made this graphic, hats off to you, because I know this took a lot of time.
Yes. This graphic had to take a long time.
Dude, the Vandy, Missouri, like swapping off is a little bit disrespectful to Missouri. Like you're in the same category. I mean, but you're in the same category as Vandy.
Yeah, I like the rotating on and off a lot, just because right now we're stuck with some atrocious home games because the SEC East is dog water, and this would give us a much better opportunity, and we get to go places that we don't get to go very often.
If you just alternate those, you maybe get Bama home, Ole Miss on the road, Oklahoma at home, Vandy
right?
On the road.
That's awesome.
A&M at home.
You're getting every team at
That's
home
a good schedule.
at least once every 4 years. This way, exactly once every 4 years.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, who's getting screwed the most in this graphic right here?
Oh, there was somebody. I got to find him again.
And why is
somebody
it
else
Arkansas?
like that is just mean. It might be
And why is it Arkansas?
Arkansas has LSU, Texas, and Texas A&M. Good freaking luck.
Auburn's another one too, where they were like, I feel bad for Mississippi State because they're on Bama and Auburn, where they're just like, here, y'all just take Mississippi State as like a peace offering since you got to play.
Yes,
you got to play each other, Georgia and Tennessee.
All right, now who has the easiest like permanent teams too?
Vanderbilt.
Yes,
if only they could play themselves.
Yeah, it's Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky has
my God, that is horrendous.
Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of these kind of feel like afterthoughts, but I understand. Like I said, I understand what they were trying to do with like the difficulty and things like that.
Yeah, no doubt. It is a balance. You have to balance it, but Vandy is the problem here. They need to be relegated. Like I said, I can't stand them being in the SEC. I really can't.
I just don't. I don't think this is an easy. Somebody's not going to be happy at the end of the day.
No doubt.
But I think the priority has to be keeping your big time games. Like we cannot be robbed of Alabama LSU every year. Come on.
Agreed. I just hope it's a 9-game schedule we're upset over, like the scheduling over the 9 games, because the 8 games, like. You can't have 18 teams in a conference that have 8 games.
No.
That just can't happen. Like you have to have at least 9. All right, I think we've beat this horse enough.
One more question though. For Oklahoma, like the Oklahoma State game, they're not playing that anymore, or not planning on it right now, are they?
They're in a little pissy war again. Gundy said they're not playing them.
That happened when A&M left too. How mad is A&M, by the way? Because I think like they were like when they left the Big 12, they were like, we are never playing Texas again. And then boop, pods, buddy, you're playing every year.
A&M is by far the biggest loser of Texas and Oklahoma joining. Their recruiting is going to take a hit. It just is.
Yeah.
Like right now, they can use the SEC as a weapon, and they can't anymore against teams they recruit against. So I'm interested to see how A&M continues to look here in the next 5 years.
I'm willing to bet they're going to be one of the teams that's in favor of an 8 game with only one permanent rival because they probably don't.
That's true. That is true. Very true. I'd say a lot of those bottom feeders will be Vanderbilt, Missouri.
Vanderbilt. I think I read Vanderbilt's coach was pretty sure. I don't know why, but yeah, there were a few that have already said they're voting.
He should never have an opinion on anything. Shouldn't ever be worth anything.
Hey, Vandy over though.
Yeah,
3.5.
Yeah.
All we need.
All right. Speaking of
as long as he
over-unders,
keeps his mouth shut.
Speaking of over-unders, speaking of lines, speaking of money, we are bringing you a regularly scheduled gambling hour for the week. Not an hour, though. Obviously.
Half hour.
So today, last week we dove into SEC win totals. And this week we're going to dive into everyone's favorite award, the Heisman Trophy. Is the Heisman Trophy the most celebrated individual trophy in sports?
Maybe, but I think it's lost so much shine, man. The reason, I'll get into my rationale for my picks later, man. But this thing hasn't been close since what, 2008? Kyler Tua, was that the last time it was even close? I don't even know if that was close. I mean,
I'm trying to think.
Joe Burrow ran away with it. Devontae Smith kind of ran away with it as a wide receiver.
This year was actually extremely close up until the last week.
Yeah, it's like we always kind of know. Like it used to be a surprise, genuinely. Like a lot of the times we would kind of have some suspense, but there's just been no suspense to it at all. And yeah, it is what it is at this point. But it definitely, I feel like it does have the most fanfare because you think about it, people watch the Heisman Trophy ceremony. People don't watch like NFL MVPs and stuff like they don't watch the NBA MVPs, stuff like that.
The Heisman Trophy is just an iconic trophy too. Just look at that thing. It's such a sick trophy, just in general as well. I mean, but it definitely has lost its shine. I mean, look at this freaking list, guys. It's all quarterbacks.
Yes, and a part of that is too, like you have to have the story too. Like if Caleb Williams was playing at Washington, flip Michael Penix and Caleb Williams last year, and Michael Penix is your Heisman Trophy winner. Like, that's another issue I have with the Heisman. Like, all right, if we're going to give it to the best player, let's give it to the best player of the year, not the best player on the best team. Like that's kind of lame. I know that's how all individual awards are, but I think that's lame personally. And you kind of have to take this into account when you start looking at these numbers and these odds of who you're going to bet on. So I'll go down the list real quick just for people that's listening, not watching. Obviously, Caleb Williams is the heavy favorite, the returning Heisman Trophy winner at plus 450. Then you have a run of plus 1,200 guys with Jordan Travis, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., and then we start at 1,400 through 1,800. Bo Nix, our old friend Bo Nix, going to miss playing him this year. Quinn Ewers, Sam Hartman, Jaden Daniels, Kyle McCord, Ohio State quarterback, Joe Milton, Tennessee quarterback, and J.J. McCarthy. Notably not present is Carson Beck of Georgia, as I know this crowd will want to know what his odds are. Griff, do you have that?
Oh, it's fine. No, I have him. It's plus 2,800, and I already took it.
2,800.
Yeah. It was when I took it. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and start then. You got to think about it. Think about who was there last year. All the best quarterbacks on the best teams. Assuming that Georgia does go 12-0, it's reasonable to think you can at least get a hedge spot there if he's there. I took Cade Klubnik for the same reason.
Yeah.
I was a little down on Clemson last year, but I think there's a solid chance they win the ACC. I also took Caleb Williams just because Lincoln Riley quarterback. There's a couple guys on here I just don't like. Do you see Sam Hartman or J.J. McCarthy? Like, no disrespect to those guys. They're good quarterbacks, but like in their offense, are they going to have the numbers?
I wouldn't have J.J. McCarthy anywhere near this list personally.
Even somebody like Joe Milton. Joe Milton will have the numbers. Like he'll have the stats.
Yeah, and so you look at a guy like I was blown away when Griffin sent this graphic and Cade Klubnik wasn't in this list.
Same odds.
Like, I find that incredibly hard to believe. You're talking, like you said, Jake, the best players on the best teams, the quarterbacks usually on the best teams. That blows my mind. If you're looking for a non-quarterback, I think this is the year that he has enough helium now. Like Brock Bowers is known throughout the college football world because he's been on the big stage so much. Like you have to kind of if you're a non-quarterback, you kind of have to establish that repertoire of like, or that not repertoire, but kind of that reputation in college football of being like one of the best players and like, constantly being a highlight rate or a highlight tape player, doing stuff. He's done stuff in the Natty. He's done stuff in the playoffs now. Like he has enough helium where he could actually do it if he went nuts. I don't know if you can say the same about many other players, any position players other than.
While I do agree, I just don't know if we're going to be in enough competitive games for him to have the stats.
Yeah, that's always an argument for us.
Yeah,
and same thing for Beck. That could really hurt him.
Like you have to have, if you're a non-quarterback, because quarterbacks are always going to have stats most of the time. But if you're a non-quarterback, you have to have insane stats to be up for this thing. I mean, think about.
Did you see Blake Corum's numbers last year?
I mean, he had like 1,800 rushing yards, did he not?
I don't think he had 1,800 rushing yards. No.
I thought he had a bunch, but
I mean, he had good stats, but it wasn't any better than, whoever,
well, he finished
another running back down the line.
What he finished, like 7th?
He got votes. He got votes.
Something
that's what I'm saying, though. But he was a Michigan runner, number one. He had, ran in the playoffs before. And so he had enough helium where it was like, oh, he's a preseason guy. If he does well, he could win the Heisman. He does well, and he's up for the Heisman.
But look, if you look at last year, this is something I can tell you. You can eliminate some of these guys right now. Look at last year. Caleb Williams, USC, almost made the playoffs. Absolutely generational idiot with a lead, or they would have been in the playoffs. Max Duggan, C.J. Stroud, Stetson Bennett. There's 3 playoff teams. That makes me want to eliminate Drake Maye almost immediately. I don't know if that's going to hold, but I think Drake Maye will have the stats. But North Carolina's got to be like a 2-loss team, I think, for him to be competitive with that. Eddie Rosario just took away a home run. That was so sick.
Oh, yeah, he did. That was nasty.
Anyways, Michael Penix. Love the guy? Probably not. Bo Nix? Crazy enough, puncher's chance. I hope they make a playoff so we can play him again, just because that would be so funny. So funny if we beat him again. It would actually be hilarious. Quinn Ewers, definitely. Jaden Daniels, definitely. McCord, I don't know too much about him, but Ohio State, he's going to have a shot.
What do y'all think about Michael Penix, though? Like, for real? Like, do you think he has a shot, or?
I just don't think. I think Washington's decent, but I just don't know. Like Pac-12, like unless they go undefeated.
I don't personally, but
just to put it in perspective, by the way, Blake Corum was the 11th leading rusher in college football, behind guys like Muhammad Ibrahim from Minnesota, Chase Brown from Illinois, Bijan Robinson from Texas, Keyshawn Junkins from Ole Miss, Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. He had 1,500 yards. I mean, that's a really good season, but it's not a Heisman season.
Yeah. No.
So, yeah, back to my argument. You want guys that are going to be on playoff teams.
Exactly.
So that's why I took Klubnik, and that's why I took Beck.
So that is why when I looked at this graphic, a name that really just popped out to me at plus 1,200 is Jordan Travis. Just because he is for Florida State. Media loves Florida State. Always have. I mean, when Jameis was there and they were rolling, all you saw was in the news was Florida State all the time. Part of that's because Jameis earned his way in the news a lot. And then other half of that is because Florida State is a storied brand. Everybody loves them. I mean, media members love them. And so Jordan Travis, if he plays really well, they're already getting helium. He's going to be – the propaganda will be there for him. So I think those numbers are worth maybe sprinkling a little bit. Yeah, Michael Penix, I don't know how he's going to bounce back this year. I think he punched way above his weight class last year in terms of what he did.
That's what I think too.
Maybe that coach is a wizard, but I don't know. And I think 1,600 for Quinn Ewers is the bet of the century, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the most value on this list.
And you know why?
They're going to be good, if they're going to win.
And you know why? Is because they go to Alabama week 2. Everyone in the world will be watching that. We saw what he did against them in the first quarter last year, and it made my mouth water. It was one of the best quarters of quarterback play I've ever seen. He was absolutely dicing Bama up. It was surgical. I was like, this dude, right? NFL draft right now, he's going number 1. He's the best I've ever seen. He kind of regressed towards the end of the year after that, but he showed me that he's talented enough to do that. And with Sark, they have A.D. Mitchell now. I mean, he's a good player. They have Xavier Worthy. Like, they have dudes that are capable of catching passes and capable of making big plays. Obviously, they have Sark, who's an offensive mastermind. Like, he's a guy I think could win it. I really do.
Yeah, I don't think he's out of the conversation. He took some punishment last year. I mean, he got hurt in the Bama game. I think he got sacked 5 times, maybe. Baylor, somebody. It was one of the last games of the year, but he's taken some punishment. But if their O-line shored up, then
that's another reason. Their offensive line had like 3 freshmen on it last year, and they've recruited offensive line insanely well the last couple cycles. I think it should be good. And like I said, if he walks into Tuscaloosa and puts on a display and they beat Bama, like, it would take an absolute dump-worthy 10-game stretch after that to not at least be in New York.
No, yeah, I was going to go back to that point because think about Joe Burrow and his Heisman season. Like, they went to Texas game 2, and like he took over, had a big game, and like that was really like, I don't know if his name had really been in the talk for anything before that. I mean, and that put him on the map. Like, Quinn Ewers is already on the map too, you know?
Yeah. Yep. And you mentioned it, Jake. Joe Milton, if he's half as good as Tennessee fans think he's going to be, then he's a lock to be it. So we'll see. We're already hearing about the Joe Burrow in 2019 again. I mean, have you seen how far he can throw an orange? This fan base wants this team to be 2019 LSU so bad, which makes sense. I mean, 2019 LSU was unbelievable, but like trying to draw the parallels to it is insane. Like, you're not.
It also really doesn't make a ton of sense because 2018 LSU, if I remember correctly, was not that good. Like, they lost to UCF in that bowl game, didn't they?
No, they beat UCF in the bowl game.
They came back and beat them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that was the moment. That was the year they had the 72-74 game. They were decent that year. Yeah.
That dude slammed Joe Burrow in that game. Remember?
That was the moment everything changed.
Yeah.
That was the moment everything changed.
His personality changed in that moment. He became Joe Breezy.
Honestly.
Yeah. So I think some under the radar plays though, like you said. I mean, Craig Klubnik is an awesome play. Carson Beck's an awesome play just because they're going to be on 2 of the best teams. But
if Carson Beck was plus 1,200, I'd say no, he's not going to have the stats. But I mean, if he's at least in New York, you got a hedge spot.
Yeah, and I think some of those odds are depleted with Bobo being the OC because obviously coming off Todd Monken and what he's done, it's a little bit of unknown there. So yeah, I think there's definitely some value if everything works out as a dog fan. And like we said, off this graphic, if you're forcing me to put money on 3 people, I'm taking Jordan Travis, I'm taking Quinn Ewers, and I'd sprinkle Joe Milton. Caleb Williams, like plus 450 is tough because, is it really worth it for plus 450? But at the same time, I think he's the best player in college football. And the only thing that's holding me back is it's that winning that second one is so tough. Like, they're going to do everything they can not to give it to him.
If he plays all 12 games, he'll be in New York. He's only.
He'll definitely be in New York, 100%. But they're going to try everything not to give it to him.
Yeah, it's hard to repeat, man. I thought Bryce Young was going to do it. Just didn't happen.
It's hard. Well,
I think one more thought on the Heisman talk. I think it's kind of nuts that Carson Beck is plus 2,800, which is about 5 times less than what Stats odds were this time last year. He was plus 12,000.
Wow.
Dude, we saw Stet for a whole year. Like, we have not seen Carson Beck but in garbage time. Like,
yeah, that is true.
That's kind of weird to me.
You got to think the odds makers know now too that with Georgia's schedule and stuff, they're on a prime path to at least be in the playoff, and they got to consider that. I mean, last year it was like, oh, are they going to fall asleep? Repeat 1 year wonder type thing. But
yeah, agreed. I'd love to have another guy in New York. That's a huge pub, man. Last year when Stet was there, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And it's a good recruiting pitch, no doubt. But that's the show for today. Got a lot packed into that 45 minutes right there.
Yeah, we did.
Good to get back on the live stream. We had one little hiccup, but hey, it happens. It happens.
I don't know what happened.
Griff was turning the Braves game on and it kicked off.
Dude, it had nothing to do. I didn't even have the Braves. The Braves hadn't even started yet.
We're going to make everybody think their car radios are broken tomorrow. So that
we just sit there in silence. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, but, so I usually mute the intro just because it's loud. Because I have my stuff jacked up, but I usually have it muted. So I just didn't, and my video is not running. But because I have the Braves game on. And so I was like, it's just me. We're just sitting there.
Well, like we said on Twitter and like we said on here last time, we got a lot of big plans coming up for the rest of this offseason as we lead into football. It's going to get hot here soon, folks. It's going to get really hot, but then it's going to start cooling off, and we're going to start hearing the bands play. We're going to start hearing some pads popping, and all's going to be right in the world. So until then, we'll keep you fired up. We'll keep that fire burning, and we appreciate you guys listening. Everybody have a good week. Go Dogs.